Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Less Than 10 Talk. My name is Piper Harris, and I am the CEO and coach of Poema Women's Success Coaching. So, with Less Than 10 Talks, I'm hoping to give you some tips and tools that you can add to your professional tool belt, and I'll share a few personal stories along the way. So, in case of emergency, listen, we all have been faced with emergencies, personally and professionally. And in fact, I was faced with something just this past weekend. We're here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were hit by a massive storm. So the next day, I woke up. I was so snug in my bed, had no idea things were going on. Went out to the garage to put my son in the car and get ready for school, and I heard it. Was it a trickle? No. Was it a complete deluge? A river breaking through my roof, down the walls of my garage? Absolutely. Down the walls of my garage, into the walls of my dining room, under my hardwood floors, and pouring down the walls into my basement. It was a complete and utter disaster. But as in any situation, we had a plan for an emergency. And in fact, the steps that I took for our roof are the same steps you can take for an emergency in your professional life. So I will never forget when I was managing a program, a grant funded program in the city of Spokane. And in fact, during that time, I was also managing AmeriCorps volunteers. These volunteers were paid by stipends, so it wasn't much, but they just had a heart for what we were doing. During one of our many campaigns to encourage empowered youth, my staff, which I direly needed to have at an event, did not show up. All of them were gone. No one was there. I had media there and over 60 youth that were ready to jump in. It was a complete and utter disaster. So, the next 5 things you can apply to your personal life or your professional life. So, first things first, you've got to assess the damage. How bad is it? Where are the areas that you need to patch up immediately to stave off further calamity? As with the house, my roof, or the same with this event, I had to assess how greatly this would damage my home or damage our reputation and the program's reputation right then and there. Second, you've got to call for help. Like us, we immediately called our insurance agent, who then got us in touch with the right people. And I made some phone calls while I was at the event. I gathered as many people as I could, but they wouldn't be there in time for the event. But I still called for help. So when you're faced with an emergency at work, who do you call for help? Is it a mentor, a coworker? It's time to build that Rolodex of helpful individuals when these things are going to happen. Third, emergency services. You've assessed the damage, you've called for help, and now it's time for emergency services. So this includes letting your boss know right now, rather than later, what took place. And then you have to act. The greatest deterrent to you overcoming your emergency is becoming paralyzed at what you're faced with. So at my event, I gathered 3 youth with whom I kind of peripherally knew and gave them jobs. I snagged one of the media personalities with whom I'd become friends and asked her for help. Number four, patch it up. We got a tarp put on our roof, tore out some walls, and we have so much more to go. We have monster-sized fans and our dehumidifiers everywhere in our house, but we patched up the mess. And at my event, in the rush of the adrenaline and the dread that had come over me, I knew I could salvage it. And in fact, I could cross-promote the TV personality who was helping us. I patched it up, put people to work, and it took off. Finally, and last, you have to debrief. The worst of this disaster, this emergency is over, and it's time to debrief. What are your next steps? And what could you have done differently? Well, with our roof, we probably should have replaced it last year when the entire neighborhood was doing so. And with my event, here's the tough thing. I had to have a debrief with myself and the executive director and recognize with my AmeriCorps volunteers and why they didn't show. I hadn't said thank you enough. I assumed their heart for humanity and this little tiny stipend was enough to keep them going at an insane pace. They mutinied. It was entirely my fault. I had to do things differently in the future. So when disaster strikes and you have an emergency on your hands, in your professional life, you take these 5 steps. You assess the damage, you call for help, you have emergency services, you patch it up, and you debrief. We'll all be faced with emergencies in our life, professional and personal. Maybe you haven't created this professional emergency, but these 5 steps can really keep you on track. And remember, your greatest enemy is being paralyzed. Assess the damage, call for help, build that Rolodex of helpers, assess it, get the emergency services in, patch it up, and debrief. There's always something that you can learn in these situations. So thanks so much for joining me today with this week's Less Than 10 Talk. I hope you've enjoyed learning in case of an emergency. If you have questions about your professional life and how to manage workplace culture, I would love to help you with that with our leadership executive coaching. Reach out to me and we can set up a complimentary consultation. Thanks so much for your time today. And until next time, I'll see you